Welcome back, viewers, to the 2020 CNPS Yerba Buena Native Garden Tour. After two fascinating presentations by Amber Hasselbring and Matt Ritter, we're switching gears to live garden visits. Our first visit is to Mike and Terri Belcher's Pipevine Garden in western San Francisco. Mike is a retired San Francisco firefighter who has been stewarding gardens in the Green Hare Street Butterfly Corridor for many years. He's raised everything from native plants to turtles to goldfish. Today, he's raising pipevine swallowtails on a Dutchman's pipevine plant that he planted almost 20 years ago. Mike and Terri, thanks so much for being with us here today. Do we have a signal coming in from western San Francisco?
Can you see the T-shirt?
Oh, yeah. Nice. Where did you get that?
This was made by Tim Long, my mentor, and the guy that really should be doing this presentation, but he's working today, so I'm filling in for
Oh, thanks, man.
him. So, Tim also shared this, which is I'll show you the butterfly, how it looks like. You get an idea of the size. You can see the difference between the males and the females. The male having the blue hind wings, the female's not. I think we had some pictures of them earlier. I'll show you some more.
Looks like there's some variation.
Yeah, this is a beautiful photo of a male.
Oh, lovely.
Beautiful blue. Unfortunately, I've been releasing all of my butterflies that have hatched out this year. I don't have any actual live butterflies to show you. Here's a picture that I think really exemplifies the difference between male and female. The female on top and the male on the bottom. Okay.
Nice. What beautiful butterflies.
Here's a photo of my side yard. I'm going to show you. This is what it looked like about a month ago, how lush it's down the side. It'll be interesting when I show you what it looks like now after having fed maybe 1,000 caterpillars on it. It's practically defoliated. But of course, the caterpillars then turn into chrysalis. These are my last year's chrysalises that I raise, and I'll bring them out to show you. These haven't hatched yet. I'm hoping they still will, but they may not. These are late, so they attach to the bottom side of this mesh that I raised them in a box. Here's a good picture that Tim had of the color variation. The chrysalises can be anywhere from the beautiful bright green to a dull brown color. What's that?
Make sure they can see it.
Oh, hope you can see that. Can you guys see that? Or I don't know if anybody talks to me.
We can see it, yes.
Okay,
Sorry, I
good.
muted myself there to keep the background noise.
So what I do, I planted the vine 20 years ago. I want to show you how thick the original mother plant trunk is. You can see it here, very large. And at one time, the vine grew all the way up. I had a lattice here, and it grew up, and it covered the whole front of my house, all the way to the roof. And then it hung down over here and rooted over here and started growing over here. I had to cut it down to paint my house. But it's regrown, and I don't let it grow up that high anymore. But I've added lattice, you can see, for the vine to grow. So here's a view of the front garden, and you can see many caterpillars are on it. These are late stage caterpillars. They're just about full grown, and they'll be going to chrysalis here soon. There's many more. I think can you see all those?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this looks great.
Yeah.
Wow,
now,
look at that.
Now, what I did this year for the first time, in past years, first of all, I planted it 20 years ago, and it took 17 years before a female finally showed up and laid eggs on it. And you have to be patient. But now that they're here in the city, maybe if you plant it, you won't have to wait as long as I did. And what I do now, I take the eggs in. So here's an example of the eggs that have been laid in a cluster. You see those orange eggs? Are they visible?
Yeah, I can see them.
Okay. So
they're small.
Yeah. So I used to just leave them on the vine, and then when they hatched into caterpillars, I would take them indoors and raise them. But you have a certain mortality rate if you do that, because a lot of things eat the eggs and the baby caterpillars. So this year I actually harvest the eggs and take them inside, so there's less mortality. You don't have to do that. It's up to you if you want to do that or not. I enjoy it. So typically I'll just cut this off, and you just place it in a little plastic cup like this. And then it takes 10 to 14 days for them to hatch out, depending on temperature. I take them inside so it's warmer. Here's some old eggs. You can barely see them. They should be hatching soon. And then here's some that once they hatch, then I start feeding them on the tender young leaves. I don't know if you can see how small they are.
Yeah.
When they first hatch, I have to use a magnifying glass to transfer them. I change the leaves every day, and I use a paintbrush to move the young caterpillars to the new growth. And we'll put these back. I have some slightly older ones in here to show you scale, how they grow. So here you can see there's probably 20, 25 young caterpillars in there.
About how old are those?
Those are about, they've hatched out about 2 weeks ago now, I would say. And then I have the old granddaddies, and you can see how big they get. So this is what they call the 5th instar. And that's about as big as this caterpillar species gets. I'm going to see if all swallowtail caterpillars have something called an osmeterium. And I'm going to see if I get him to do it. There, it's starting to come out. He's not doing it. Let's see if I get another one to do it. They're too lazy. There, you see the yellow thing popping out by its head? Do you see that?
Yeah. Yes.
See, now it's more obvious. You see that fork shaped?
Yeah.
That has a chemical compound. That's another defense mechanism that they have. And they try to hit you with that. It's supposed to smell bad, although I've never noticed the odor. I get it on me all the time. But the caterpillar, the vine, is toxic. It has aristolochic acids in it, which are toxic to vertebrates. Even though people have used it as a herbal remedy for certain things over the years, I wouldn't recommend it. It causes kidney failure, and it can cause certain types of cancer. But the caterpillar sequesters the aristolochic acids that it eats, and so it gets protection from vertebrate predators. Unfortunately, as they can eat it, so can other insects eat them. So it doesn't give them protection from invertebrate predators like spiders are a big predator. Yellow jackets, I've seen yellow jackets sting a caterpillar even this large and eat it. But that yellow osmeterium supposedly helps them deter some predators, but you do have some loss. The plant is very easy to grow. It gets its name. Let me show you what the flower looks like. That's a pipevine flower, and you can see it looks like a pipe, hence the name. This particular flower is pollinated by a species of gnat, and when the flower is pollinated, it'll produce a fruit seed pod like this, which is loaded with seeds. You can grow the plant from seeds if you'd like. It's a very slow process if you're doing that. I should also add that I'm squeezing this pretty hard. It's hard as a golf ball, and yet the caterpillars eat this like candy. And you can hear them munching on this from 10 feet away. But Tim Wong, also the guy who was generous to show these things, he also showed me how to propagate the plant from cuttings, and I was going to do that for you right now. An example. What we look for, this is an example of a plant that I grew from cuttings. You can see it's got 4 or 5 sprouts already. It's well on its way. It's only been up for a short while. So what we look for is the runner vine, we call it. That's the thick diameter vine that grows out of the base. So here's an example of it right here. And this plant sends out runners that root in the soil and extend the plant. So when you want to make a cutting, I take about a 2-foot section of the runner vine. I've already stripped the leaves off, and I cut the tip off here. And you can see everywhere there's a bud is a potential rooting site. And so then I take this to a 1-gallon container, and you just circle the plant in the soil. This is just the regular lousy soil that's here in the sunset, like that. And then you bury it completely in dirt. it's kind of different than the normal way you grow things from tip cuttings. I used to try to grow this plant from normal tip cuttings, you know, with rooting hormone and that kind of thing, and had minimal success. But doing it this way, after Tim showed me how to do this, you get almost 100% growth.
So that's very sandy soil.
Yeah, very sandy soil. And then I just water it in, and you know, maybe once a week. One thing for beginning gardeners, I see a mistake that a lot of them make is they like to fill the pot all the way up when they're doing seedlings. They think that the more soil, the better. But if you don't leave room for the water's just going to run off if you fill it with soil. So I always like to leave the soil down about an inch so that you can give the plants a good drink. Mm-hmm. And this was when I started. Hasn't sprouted yet, but that'll be another plant. I give them away to people in the neighborhood, try to get more people growing the plant. It likes all types of light conditions. I've seen it growing in full sun to full shade. Mine here gets morning to midday sun. It does very well. My garden down the side that I've extended it grows with more sunlight, and it loves that as well. I would add, though, I know a lot of people that are in native plants are drought tolerant conscious. This plant is drought tolerant when it's established. However, it thrives in water because it's a riverine species. It grows along the river, like the American River, the Russian River, things like that. So it does love water. My mother plant that I planted, I gave it 5 gallons once a week with a drip system. And like I said, it covered, you know, the whole front of my house in a couple of years. Now, other people that I've given cuttings to and they don't water it, after 6 years, the plant is still, you know, only a foot tall. So if you're going to get a pipevine, I know a lot of people that have native plants don't like to water, but once it's established, it is totally drought tolerant. So I have a second property up in Sebastopol. It's 1.5 acres, and I planted about 8 pipevines up there, and I only watered it the first summer to get it through the first summer. Haven't watered it since, and it's thriving up there. It's doing very well. Supporting
Nice.
a lot of the butterfly. Now up there, the butterflies only took 7 years to find it because they're more native up there, and they've been breeding up there for about 8 years. I don't do anything there as far as taking them in and raising them. I just let nature take its course. So the mortality rate is higher, but there's still a good population, a thriving population of pipevine up there in my garden now. So that's kind of good.
Any tips on growing them in clay soil, or they pretty much love the sand?
I think they do great in clay soil because they love water. So I think you can't overwater them in our sandy soil here. You can give them 10 gallons a week if you want it. And I wanted to emphasize that the 5 gallons a week should be done at one time. All 5 gallons at once, so that the water goes down deep and the roots will go down deep, and you'll get there's a definite correlation between below ground root growth and above ground growth. A lot of people water maybe 1 gallon 5 times a week. That wouldn't do as well because the water wouldn't go down as deep. So one heavy watering once a week is what the plant really thrives on. I want to show you. So that's the picture of what my side yard looked like about a month ago. You can see how lush and full of leaves it is, and you can see in my driveway here. You see that's the lattice that I used to extend the vine. It's a stucco wall, so you can't attach directly to it. So I bought these pressure-treated posts like this. You can get them at any Home Depot, and I drove it down in the ground about every 4 feet, and then I attached that lattice to it all the way down the side of the house. So as we go over that way, you can see again more caterpillars. Here's a nice cluster of them here. Another whole group of them over here. And
so they're not just using the pipevine, obviously.
Well, they are just using the pipevine. You can hardly see it though; it's growing in there. This plant this plant is a volunteer. It showed up in my garden. I think it's called a potato bush or something, like a potato vine.
And like a solanum.
It is a solanum, exactly. And so I left it because the vine likes to grow on it, and it supports it. So. But if you notice, if you look closely, they're only on the pipevine. That's the vine itself.
Oh, okay.
Even though it's all wrapping up in the solanum plant. Now, occasionally they will leave the host plant like this to rest. He's probably getting ready to molt. So I don't know how many people know that caterpillars have to go through a stage. They have to go through a 5 molt in their life. So their skin can only grow so big, and then they have to molt into another skin. So when they get ready to molt, they'll attach to a leaf like that so they can pull their new growth out of the old growth. But most of these are about the same age. So if you remember that picture of how lush this side yard looked just a month ago, and now you can see there's virtually nothing left. But you can also see how many caterpillars are on it.
Pipevine devastation.
Yeah, but I planted it for that purpose, so I don't mind. And again, this is unusual. This is because my friend Tim, he had to move, so he didn't have a lot of pipevine to feed his own caterpillars. Most of these are his, and so he had to use my vine. And yeah, this is they wiped it out. But I want to emphasize that all this growth that was there in that picture was 2 years. Is all it took. Because I watered the pipevine, it grew that robustly. It can grow very quickly. So I emphasize, if you're going to plant a pipevine, please water it, and you'll get the growth. Now, as far as whether you want to take them in and raise the caterpillars or just leave them on the vine, that's up to you. Both ways work. Where do you get pipevine? So for me, 20 years ago, it wasn't very easy to get. And I found an online source, Las Politas Nursery down in Santa Margarita, had it for sale, and that's where I got mine from. But now I think Slow Garden does carry it. I think Suncrest Wholesale Nurseries is growing it now commercially, so that's a good sign. So it is available to you. That's about it.
Far out, man. Hey, that was really wonderful.
Well, the one story I do like to tell
butterflies.
is I want to mention Louise Hallberg. She died a couple of years ago at the age of 100, and she was the one that got me started. We read an article in the San Francisco Chronicle about this woman that had a butterfly garden that was open to the public up in Grayton, California, which is it's between Sebastopol and Forestville, about an hour north. And my wife and I went up there, and of course the pipevine swallowtails were flying all around. And the story is that her mother planted a pipevine in 1920. And it grew all around the garden of her Victorian farmhouse. They had an apple ranch there, and it spread. And when I went to visit it 20 years ago, they considered it the second highest population of pipevine swallowtails in the western United States. And that was all because one woman planted one plant. And that was my inspiration, and I hope it's an inspiration to you as well. I came home and planted one plant, and now I'm raising 1,000 caterpillars. And you can do the same, and anywhere in this society. And most of us treasure our horizontal gardens, but this is a great vertical. You can any fence line that you have, you can attach a lattice like that, or you can do a redwood lattice and put it on your fence facing almost any direction. The plant will thrive as long as you give it water. And you can extend the habitat of this beautiful butterfly here in the city. I think we can make it an urban butterfly. I wanted to mention this book. Matt Zlatnich demanded that I buy this book. And it's by Art Shapiro. It's the Field Guide to Butterflies of the San Francisco Bay Area. So the point of this is that any butterfly species that you want, it'll tell you what is their host plant. I don't know if I mentioned that this is the only plant that this butterfly uses. And most butterflies are like that. They have a very specific plant that they lay their eggs on. And I know most people, when they think of a butterfly garden, they think more in terms of the nectar plants that attract the adult butterflies who nectar on that. That's what the adult butterflies feed on, is nectar, like a hummingbird, most of them. But really the important plant to plant for a butterfly garden, in my opinion, is the host plant, the one that the butterfly will lay its eggs on, that the caterpillars will feed on, go to the chrysalis and hatch out, and provide for the next year's generation of butterflies. So this book tells you every species in the area and what their host plant is. And you can plant, I have several other host plants in my garden. I have coastal buckwheat for the green hair streak, with the rocky outcrop is only 2 blocks away. Hello to Amber, by the way. I don't think I said hello, Amber. You did a great job. And of course, my buddy Bob Hall and Matt Zlatnich, a former fireman like myself, are following me. Big shoes to fill, I'm afraid, guys. I set the bar pretty high.
You're right up there.
There's an old thing in show business that you don't want to ever follow babies or animals. Well, I got all these caterpillars. You guys are going to have a tough time, but I think you're up to the task. I think both those guys will do well.
Thank you so much, man. We really appreciate your time, and thanks to Terri too for
Terri,
doing
my
the
wife,
excellent.
Terri, turn around, Terri, show yourself. There's my cinematographer.
Hey, fantastic job, Terri.
Anybody have any questions?
There are questions, but you know what? We're about 20 minutes behind right now, so we're going to take them offline. If you go up, you can go into the chat and answer them there if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
Really appreciate it, man.
Oh, one thing I would like to ask is any members that are watching who have an established pipevine, a large one. As you can see, I'm just about out of leaves. We might have some more caterpillars. Would like to give them. Just get a hold of Bob Hall. He knows how to get a hold of me, and I'll try to get you some caterpillars if you have a pipevine and you'd like some. I didn't say hello to Jake Sig. Hey, Jake, if you're watching, I gave him some caterpillars the other day. And Liam O'Brien, my other mentor. Liam, how you doing? Hope you're watching. Okay, buddy. Thanks.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks a lot. So that was really fun.
All right, good.